Good evening, and thank you for joining us for this Sing September event. I am Alan Hughes, Vice Chairman of the British Association of Barbershop Singers, and I am delighted to be joined this evening by professional mezzo-soprano Claire Barnett-Jones. I will leave Claire to introduce herself and tell you more about her amazing singing career so far, but needless to say, we are hugely honoured and grateful to her for joining us this evening. Straight after this evening's presentation, Claire will join me to answer some questions. So if you would like to ask anything, then please post your questions in the comments on the live feed and we will try to get them all answered. So without further ado, please enjoy this evening's masterclass with Claire Barnett-Jones.
Hello, my name is Claire Barnett-Jones and welcome to my contribution to the BABS SingSeptember. During this session, I'm going to take you through a bit about the opera industry, a bit about how I got into opera, and also I'm at the moment doing a role premiere for me, role debut at Opera Frankfurt, and I will take you a bit behind the scenes, a bit looking at my makeup and hair, and also some warm-ups which you're welcome to join in with, and I'll explain things as I go along as well. At the end, I will also have a live question and answer session, but I will also be answering some pre-recorded and pre-submitted questions from you all as well. So I started barbershop when I was 9 years old, mainly due to the fact my dad was late picking me up from a swimming class. But I joined Somerset Hills Chorus and I loved it. It was a fantastic group of women and I got my bug for barbershop from them. I competed with them at Sweet Adeline's Region 31 and also in a quartet, which was great thing to do. I then went on to join the Ivy League, as it was known then, which was the Labs Youth Chorus. Here I met a fantastic bunch of young women from all over the UK, as well as learnt so much from different coaches we had and learning repertoire that I wouldn't in my chorus. And it was a great learning experience. I was made bass section leader and then went on to become musical director. This was a particularly old clip, but from a retreat that we did in about 2009, I would have thought. And this is a picture of our performance at the BABS convention. Through the Ivy League, I met 3 other fantastic singers who I joined a quartet with. And ironically, we were called Eternity, but we did reach the top 10 in Sweet Adeline's in Region 31 and had a great time on stage. Due to my involvement within the Ivy League and also my singing degree that I was taking at the time, I was invited to become a lab singing judge candidate. And I qualified as a judge in 2012 and only recently had to give it up due to my other singing commitments. I love being a judge and I love coaching and I'm really pleased it's something I managed to do. Since then, I have studied for many degrees, but I studied at the Royal Academy of Music, Guildhall School of Music and Drama and the Royal Birmingham Conservatoire. And I've also sung for popes, for royalty and for Jackie Chan, which I'm pretty impressed myself with. I've also sung at the last night of the proms and at Glyndebourne and at English National Opera, where I'm now a Harwood artist, and won the Lillian Bayliss Award for up-and-coming singer under 40. I also sang in competitions, as you heard then, and now I'm signed to an agent and my career is going in bigger directions than I even thought they would. This autumn I am stepping in very last minute in the role of Madame Flora at Opera Frankfurt, which I'm very excited about. I flew over a day after getting the call and went straight into rehearsals, where I attended an orchestral rehearsal, where you can see is very COVID secure with screens, and started rehearsing as soon as I could learn the music, basically. So at my first rehearsal was I was observing, and I observed rehearsal on stage. First BO stage and orchestra, bit of a set with my next mix. Oh, where is it? There it is. So I had a rehearsal of about a week and a half, and that led me to my opening night. So not much rehearsal time, but a very exciting week and a half. Hello! Tonight is my opening night, and I've got into the theatre about the same time as I usually would for a production. So I like to get in about an hour before I'm actually called, so that I can give my opening night presence. That's quite a big thing in opera. And I can also just zone and get into the frame of the piece that I'm doing, as well as warm up properly and not feel like I'm stressed or rushed, because once you get into makeup, that's the kind of point where you don't really have control of how much time that you have to be able to do your warming up or your preparation. So I like to make sure that I'm kind of pre-prepared, then I'll go into makeup, and then I'll do kind of a top up of a warm up after I've come back from makeup and hair. With this production, we're using microphones, and that means also we have a sound check. So we'll be going through into the theatre just to make sure everything works and the levels are right, and you never know, something might go awry, so we make sure we do that. So I'm going to start off with what I would do normally with a warm-up. So this is going from kind of cold. I mean, I've woken up, I've been up for a long hours. I made sure I slept in, which is really important when you have a show that could be quite late. You want to be at your peak, so you don't want to be tired, but it's a kind of juggling act of knowing when to go to sleep the night before, when to get up, and like that. So today I've taken it really easy. I did some yoga this morning. I just kind of stretched and made sure I was nice and relaxed. I then had a nice warm bath with some Lush bubbles and things like that. Not sponsored, but some, nice smelling things. And then I had something to eat about an hour and a half ago. Again, you kind of need to factor in when you're going to eat, how much you need, and how active the show is. So I've got an energy bar for partway through if I feel like I need something, but I've been drinking water constantly all day, so that's quite an important thing, is making sure that you're topped up. This show is quite physical for me. There's a lot of running around, there's a lot of running and singing, so you want to make sure that you're nice and hydrated as you can be. Even if you were just to do a concert and you weren't running around, you then have to add a bit more fluid to be able to be well hydrated. So I'm going to start off with some warm-ups, which you can join in with as well. They're just quite simple things, starting from some gentle bubbling to waking up our bodies a bit. So we're going to start with a lip trill. Very simple. This just also gets everything started. So we're going to do, let's start, this is a low F, which should be good for most people, and then we'll go up a semitone each time. So so 1 2 3 4 5 4 3 2 1, and Wake up, body. Keeping everything very relaxed here. There's no kind of tension going on. Also, it's a lot harder to do if you have tension. Wake up those abdominal muscles. Good. So if you find it hard to tongue trill, you can also do a bubble. So and if you find that hard, you can also put your fingers here just to kind of focus the sound a bit more, makes it easier to relax those lips. And then you can make it, if you have a tongue that loves to fall back into your throat and make you maybe sound a bit plummy, then you can go. And that way my tongue isn't going back and I can see that it's not going back. Great. Okay, so the next one that we're going to do is connecting with our lower register, making sure that it then connects across the range. So our larynx stays nice and low. We have length in our vocal tract to make sure that there's a nice amount of resonance going on. And our soft palate is raised, but we want to connect that across the range. So the pattern of notes we're going to do are 1, 2, 1, 8, 5, 3, 1, and then we go up a simultaneous time. So it should sound like this. So we're ironing out these breaks in our voice. Then we'll go up a simultaneous time. So let's start with that one again. So this specific roll for me goes quite low and it goes quite high. So I want to make sure that every part of my range is warmed up. So we'll do that again and we'll just start where I left off. So we just want to make sure that is kind of, you feel like it's being pulled maybe not the right word, but stretched. So you think that you've got a lot of space at the back of your throat. So we're just doing nya, nya. So it doesn't have to be particularly pleasant, but then it links up to the octave above. Nya. So it lets it fall into where it wants to be. Next bit. Nya. And we're going like that. So there's a bit in the score. So I'll go through bits of my score that I find tricky just to kind of iron over and make sure that they're ready. It's also more of a mental thing also than a vocal thing. But seeing as I've stepped in quite last minute for this role, I'm just kind of making sure everything is okay. So there's one bit near the end of Act 1 that I do, which goes quite high. It's after quite a energetic bit where there's a lot of speak singing, and then after that I've got to kind of really settle myself again. So it's about, it'd be like in barbershop, it's when you try and find where the peak is in the piece or the song, and make sure that you know that that's the high point of that song or that act. So this is kind of the dramatically high point, but there's a lot of long lines and it's quite high. Okay, after being interrupted by the door, let's go back to what I was doing. So I was looking at the end of Act 1, where I have quite a long line after a lot of energetic stuff. So let's just find it to make sure I've got it right. Got it. So I start by, I will sing it through, and then if I think there's not any connection, I might do it on a vowel. So if I go, oh God, what is happening to me? I might go, oh, on all the vowels, and go back over it again. Oh God, what is happening to me? More connected. Try and keep that in mind. What is this darkness? Darkness is a bit grip, so I'll go back over it. What is this darkness? Da, more R vowel. Then this is where it goes high. So if I go back over that, this is kind of coaching myself under glass. I gave too much on the first higher note, then the second higher note in my head wasn't pingy and bright enough. So I'll go over it again. And pray God to save our souls. Better. I'll keep working on it. And then I go into a lot of speak stuff. So what I love about this role is there's a lot, even because it's in English, there's a lot of speaking. Minotti loved the fact that you could go from singing into speech. He was more of a director composer rather than, say, a conductor composer, as a lot of composers are. So I love the performance element of it. Other bits that I will look at are some slightly lower bits. So with lots of words. So the bit where I say, Monica, Monica, let her hear your voice, show her. But it's quite quick. So it will go, Monica, Monica, let her hear your voice, show her. And it's about making things different, making colours different. And then the next line I would sing is, and do the little boy laughing, and do the little boy laughing. Little wasn't that there. And do the little boy laughing. So it's just going over and picking things out. And then the next bit goes high, so I've got to think even more about text. You fools, what more proof do you want? Hopefully you got that. Another part of the opera that I will go over because of the way it goes between middle voice, head voice, or higher notes and lower voice is this bit. On the piano it sounds... So I want to try, not that bit at the end. So I want to try and make it nice and smooth, but also kind of using the lower register to create a colour. And you two get out and never come back. So using the singable consonants, as I used to say a lot when I was a judge, use the and never come back. So the and never come back. Yeah. So to start off with, Tanya is pin curling my hair. So this is where my hair is being made as flat as possible against my scalp, and making sure those little baby hairs aren't going to poke out underneath the wig. And then she'll go on to put on a piece of gauze, which also helps the wig stay on, or a bandage. and then we start on with the makeup. This makeup has changed slightly from what you're seeing here because it's been made to be a bit older because I was reading as quite young on stage. But there's a foundation base, then some eyeshadow, an eyeliner, and these are usually quite matte to help with the lighting to make sure that everything doesn't seem too shiny. Then she goes on to eyebrows and a bit of blusher, I think, on this one. And then the wig goes on. So this is being tucked in, the little baby hairs with the end of the combs being tucked in, pinned underneath the pins that are in my pin curl. And then if you can see, there's a lot of glue that goes around the sides on the netting. And then that is it. And this is a finished product. So I've just had my wig and makeup done. So this is my beautiful wig. I think actually grey quite suits me. So when all the rest of my grey hairs come through, I can go grey. I like it. And so I've had my wig fitted, my makeup fitted. I've also got a microphone. Due to Corona in Germany, we've had to be 6 meters away from anybody when we sing. So that means the whole of the set has been pushed back 6 meters from the pit, from the beginning of the pit. And then we have to sing 6 meters away from everybody else as well, if we're singing directly at them. And if we're singing kind of away from them, we're 3 meters away from them as well. So we've got microphones just in case, especially with this piece that has a lot of talking and shouting and some kind of speech singing, some Sprechgesang, I think. I'll look that up. And this is I'm back in my dressing room, so we have my costumes behind me on a rail. Usually in a dressing room, we will have a piano, and I've kind of lucked out because I have a grand piano. Not that that really helps much because I'm not going to be playing. And I'm just waiting now for a sound check beforehand. So, yeah.
Bühne bitte ich Frau Wille und Frau Barnett-Jones, Herrn Lecker, Herr Weikle bitte.
So in this evening there is a choral piece before we do our opera. But at Opera Frankfurt, they make it quite easy for themselves, or the Opera House has, because the set is on a revolve. And you will see in the next 2 clips how you can go from having a choral concert at the beginning, then a little orchestral interlude, and then a fully staged opera within about 20 seconds. So enjoy. Another little difference between the UK and Germany is instead of having somebody to tell you when to go on, you have a light and it flashes to get ready and then goes off when you're meant to go on stage. And I'm going to leave you with a few production photos from the production as it goes through the piece.
Absolutely amazing stuff. Thank you so much, Claire, for putting that together and for joining us. I assume you're in Germany as we speak.
I am indeed, yes, in Germany with
Amazing.
some dodgy Wi-Fi, so I apologise in advance.
Okay, well, fingers crossed we'll be okay. So how long have you been out there now, Claire?
So now I've been out here about three and a bit weeks. Yeah, so I
Hmm.
arrived the end of September.
Yeah, and that includes the rehearsal schedule and the performances
Yeah, and
starting.
we've done three performances now. So yeah, and I've got a bit of a gap, and then I've got another three kind of very close together, and then another gap, and then a final one. So
Okay,
yeah,
so
it's
quite a
almost
run then.
time. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
exactly, exactly.
that's really cool. And how is your German? Is that part of the job or?
Nicht gut.
Yeah,
I can understand bits of German,
yeah,
and I can understand more than I have the confidence to speak. I think is probably the best way of putting it. But I'm learning and trying.
you're probably one of those rare people that can sing German better than you can speak it, I would guess.
I can pronounce it quite well, but but yeah, actually understanding what somebody's saying at a till counter isn't as good as it could be.
Yeah, yeah. That's all. Well, again, thank you. So, what an honor for us to have you here with us in the UK and in the barbershop audience, and to get to speak and learn from your experiences and expertise. Um, it's just amazing. So, thank you. Really cool as well to see some of those photos of at the start of how you got your start in barbershop and all those old photos that took me back as well. Yeah. So,
Yeah. That's one I found of you and I from an afterglow. I didn't think was right to put up, but it was really nice.
yeah, there you go. Probably for the best. So just quickly again, go over for us your start in barbershop and how you were introduced to it and how all that led on to what you do now.
Yeah, so I fell into it, like I said, when my dad was late picking me up from a swimming class, and I heard the singing from this other venue right next door, and me being a precocious little child, decided to knock on the door and kind of peek through and say, "What are you doing?" And I can sing, and can I sing to you? I think they were doing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and I decided that it would have been I can sing that as well as they could at 9 years old. So I went and sang, but and then I used to, and then every week I'd come in for slightly longer, and then stayed really, and that took over from the swimming. But um, but actually, it was barbershop that got me involved in singing. I was a musician, I was an instrumentalist. Singers are musicians too. But
Mhm.
I was an instrumentalist playing viola and saxophone. And but singing was always my kind of fun side of things. It wasn't regimented, it didn't have exams. But it has helped my singing because I could sing with I can learn things quickly, which has been helpful for this. But also the barbershop tuning really helps with a lot of modern music um, and kind of improvising things. And yeah, it's helped everything since then. So my barbershop was my fun that led me on to doing classical.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So we have received lots of questions in advance, and you've led on to them beautifully because a lot of them, understandably, are from barbershop singers asking how well, simply, how does singing barbershop differ to singing opera or vice versa, I suppose? And is there
Yeah.
anything different in the preparation? Mike says, how does your performance preparation differ between the two? And how long does it take to get ready to sing? And what is it that's different? What is it that's the same?
Yeah. So when I first started singing classically, I found the transition between singing barbershop and singing classically not really to be an issue. I think also with barbershop, I mainly sang bass. So when I sing in a range that I don't usually sing in classical singing, it means I can kind of separate them slightly. Um, there was a point where I was still singing quite a lot of barbershop and doing classical singing and had to kind of put different hats on and just realize that I can't when you sing in barbershop, especially if you were doing say a post in a bass post or a lead post, you don't usually get many, but well, you get more baritone posts, but mainly
Mhm.
bass or lead post. I when you belt as if you would on those notes, you actually don't, you compress your airflow. Whereas when you sing classically, you would increase your airflow but would compress the pressure. So it's a slightly different way of managing your breath, which if you aren't thinking about, you forget.
Okay.
So then you it kind of goes into different places that aren't good for singing. I remember Sandra Lee Riley, we were singing a tag at a judging seminar, and she would say, "Oh, Claire, you're singing so operatically," and I didn't think I was, but I just kind of clicked into this thing that I'm used to doing more than others. There is it is possible to switch between different different ways of using your voice, but you do have to put different hats on and realize, okay, this is what I'm doing today. And in the same way that when I sing opera, I can't. You do have to then go. If I'm singing, say, Handel or earlier music, is different from me singing Wagner. It's the same voice, but you think of things in slightly different ways. You put with Handel, it's usually a lot longer, so you need stamina for length, and so you reduce singing a bit. But then when you're doing Wagner, then you're singing up and down and higher and louder more often. So it's just about, it's hard to then mix them together as well. So it's difficult to do, say, a production at the same time as rehearsing a Wagner opera, doing Handel performing in the evening. So it's the same kind of idea. It is possible, but it is just, yeah, managing it.
Yeah, sure. And thank you as well for showing us into your warm-ups. Often people keep those quite private and personal, and especially to share that with us on the night. I think that was opening night, was it? Those
Yeah, yeah.
warm-ups. So thank you for that. And again, Mike Saverin asked again, in terms of preparation and warm-ups, would you, if you were getting ready for a barbershop, would you do similar exercises to what you did in there?
I would completely do similar exercises. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think people also forget that our speaking and singing voice it's all the same apparatus that you're using, but you just have to be careful to warm things up in the right way. And I think with bubbling and with using using the kind of the SOV key stuff that I know that you've had somebody come in and talk about as well. I use a straw to warm up. I use it in between rehearsals. I use it at the side of stage to just kind of keep everything relaxed and give it a little bit of a break in between scenes. And so, yeah, I use the same things as you would when I would do barbershop. But I think it is really important to also say that you do need to warm up as much as you kind of can before you sing with barbershop, as much as maybe not as much as I would when I do a big full-length opera, but you do need to then prepare yourself in the same way.
Sorry, linking into that, another question that's come in was about vocal health and asking, have you ever injured your voice and how, and what you had to do to recover from that?
Yeah. So I have never injured my voice in terms of physiological, yeah, damage. But voices get tired, like everybody's voice gets tired from talking or from shouting too much. So I have always advocated rest as much as possible, and that's kind of, it's always hard to say when you've got, say, a concert the next day, or you've got a show, or you've got, if you're during convention weekend that you're singing in a quartet on a Thursday, and then a chorus on a Friday, and then another quartet on a Saturday, and you just have to pace yourself and be really kind to yourself and go, actually, if I want to prepare and do really well in this competition, I can't stay out until 1 o'clock in the morning and think that I'm going to be as fresh as I am the night before. It's just not going to be possible. So I've never, the biggest thing that I had was actually is more to do with emotional stress on the voice. And around this time, I know I've talked to a lot of my opera friends about it, as well as actually some barbershop friends who just, you lose the stamina that you've kind of built up all over that time.
and you just need to regain it and just keep everything bubbling along a bit. You know, you're used to maybe singing once a week on chorus and once a week on a quartet, and then doing a bit of practice in between. But if you aren't doing that at all, then you've got maybe 6 months of not singing properly or singing sitting down, and it's just about making sure that you can start building up, because this will all end at some point, thank God. But it is just knowing that when that does end, you want to be able to still be at a goodish standard. You probably won't be at the same standard as you were when you were singing all the time, but just kind of keeping things ticking along is always a good thing.
That's great. We've had one. All these questions are really nicely leading into each other, so that's good. We've had quite an amusing question coming from Carolyn. How come my voice, when singing along to the radio or in chorus, could never in a zillion years sound like an opera or a musical theatre voice? I know one answer would probably be 10 years of professional coaching and training, but what do you do on stage to make it go from simply musical to magnificent, or for you from singing in the shower to performing? What is the key things there that are different, and how can she take her voice to the next level? I think she's asking.
Yeah. So like she said, 10 years of training to get to where I am today is kind of partly that, but it's also about being kind to yourself, listening to yourself, being your own coach as much as possible, and kind of implementing a kind of tick list of stuff when you practice yourself. So, am I supporting enough when I practice? Am I as hydrated as I can be? Can I be as free within my apparatus within?
Oh no. It's that German Wi-Fi. Well, guys, I hope that
I could never sing like that.
you are back, Claire. We lost you there for a minute, just for a few seconds. We were just talking about how am I warmed up enough? Am I hydrated enough? I think hydration was the last thing. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, hydration. So that's okay. So kind of like a tick list, like I said, of being your own coach, but you want to sing with your own voice. What I do when I sing opera, it is manufactured to a point. It is not your kind of I'm going to start and sing in the shower kind of voice. Not many people would sing like that, but people can sing like that. I think it also is if I said to somebody put on an opera voice, what they would do physiologically would stretch their soft palate as much as possible. Their tongue might go down the back of their throat a little bit and make it plummy. But basically, the stretching of the pharynx and stretching of all the space inside your vocal tract creates a more warmth, resonant sound. But then you have to find the right resonances, vocal resonances to go over an orchestra. That's where the training comes in, because you find how to do that, and then a teacher would be like, yeah, that's right, and that's what you go with that. And it also, if you think about muscles, they just need time to develop, and if you're doing the right thing, then you can only make that better on top of that. So yeah, it's training, but also it's just ticking off things yourself and being really being your own teacher at the same time.
Yeah,
you know more than you think you do, I think is
sure.
probably the way to say it.
Suppose there's a level of discipline there, isn't there? Just constantly be checking yourself, and yeah, that's great. I've got a question that's just popped into my head actually, and that is to do with do you slightly have to change what you're doing depending on the venue? So say if you're in a big kind of Birmingham Symphony Hall place, would that be different to say a smaller concert hall or a church or something, or a cathedral?
Interesting. Yes.
Yeah.
So so if I think about, say that I'm singing like Birmingham Symphony Hall, good example. So that the acoustics at Birmingham Symphony Hall are amazing to start off with. So that's when you sing on the stage, you get something back which is real acoustic. It's not amplified, so that helps you as well. When you sing into a dry acoustic, most people seem to push, and that's where sometimes I've seen it when I've been in venues judging, you can see the quartets that are used to singing in different venues because they don't usually change the way that they sing, and they keep quite free and open. But when venues are quite dry, you seem to want to hear what you're used to hearing back. So if you rehearsed in church hall or church, or a very resonant room, you're used to hearing a certain thing. So that when you go on stage, you're used to hearing something else. So as a singer, I try and always go with what I feel and then trust that my voice is doing what it's doing, and that will come across to the audience. But say that I was in, if you know the Wigmore Hall in London, which is a beautiful recital hall, you don't need to do much to sound. You feel like you're singing into like a cloud of air because it's so beautiful to sing in. Even if you're feeling maybe slightly under the weather, the acoustic helps you with that. So that's where it's kind of slightly more live. So you don't have to add as much airflow, and you can change the way you sing a little bit for that venue, because you don't have to push that hard to be heard at the back of a 2,000-seater auditorium. But as long as you know from the way that it feels that you're not pushing or adding extra tension in, then go with what you feel rather than what you hear. Have somebody else hear for you.
That's very good advice, and I think that's certainly applicable to barbershop singers as all sorts of singers. Yeah, just to go with what you feel, because that will always be consistent, won't it? Another question that it seems we can't get away from talking about. I noticed that choir was singing there socially distanced with masks, and there was screens for the orchestra and things like that. So how have you seen the world of opera and professional performances adapting to COVID? What kind of things have you seen?
Yes. So obviously coming from the UK, obviously I wasn't meant to be here. So it's interesting seeing the way it's being handled in maybe different countries. But there's been a lot of investigation into the way that air particles and things are traveling and all of that. I don't understand most of it, but I know that if you're singing properly, you aren't giving any more air particles, any more transmission of the air particles than if you were speaking. But what you do have to be careful of is as a singer, I would possibly spit more to enunciate the words, which is where the kind of 6-meter rule in Germany is actually is larger than the 3-meter rule in the UK, which again is quite an interesting. It's quite a big difference.
Yeah.
I think in terms of opera going forward, I think if we can make opera and classical music, the advantage we have in opera is we have big stages. So actually, even singing 6 meters away from somebody doesn't look that weird.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you are filming a TV show, then 6 meters is odd.
Yeah.
That would, but then they can cut in and pan out. But I think in terms of professional music making, the issue that I'm finding, and the biggest things that have been cancelled for me, biggest things amongst all of it, are the larger scale orchestral works, because they can either not fit an orchestra in the pit with social distancing regulations, so they have to reduce the size of the orchestra or cut that entirely because there's too many people in the pit, there's too many people on stage to also financially make it viable with a third of an audience, say. So the things that seem to be going forward are actually small scale opera pieces, so 1-hour act operas, earlier operas and earlier concerts and Mozart requiems, which are only just over an hour, and things that don't need that many forces, or things that could be brought down to, say, a string quartet, a couple of woodwind, 2 pianos. So this orchestration for the piece that I'm doing has 2 pianos, a percussion section, 1 of each woodwind, a string quartet, and a double bass. And so it is a lot more kind of streamlined. And I think if we can make music and make performing happen with those restrictions in place, and people think a little bit more outside the box, then we can still make music happen. But it is also about finances, because in Germany, for example, there's an opera house in every town. It's like having, I don't know, an opera house in Salisbury, in, you know, Worcester, in like every single medium-sized town and city, but they are partly or mostly funded by the government. And people go to the opera in Germany as if you were going to go to see a blockbuster film. They'd go, you know, once a month, or they'd go, you know, once every 2 months. It's not like a one-off, once a year, once every 2 years type thing as it might be in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
So it's supported in a different way, and it's part of the culture. So when it's funded by government, there's not as many risks in a way, if they're still wanting to keep it going. So yeah, it's difficult, but I think if we are open to everything, it will keep going.
It's certainly heartening to see people trying and making do and being, I mean, as tough as the last year's been, we've also seen some extraordinarily creative things and inventive people trying to do what they do best, in terms of things like lockdown recordings and, you know, arts being made in lockdown. It's just amazing the resilience that artists have shown, and it's great to see that transferring into the classical world, even if it doesn't look so good for things like Mahler and stuff like that at the moment with those.
I know, exactly. Mahler and Wagner and all the big stuff. But I mean, like, saying that, there's tonight at English National Opera doing a drive-in opera, where like a drive-in cinema, you'd go in your car and there's a live opera in front of you, and they tune into their radios to hear the transmission and things like that, which, you know, in financial terms are a bit risky, but it's creating, it's looking outside the box. It's going, how can we also invite new audiences, and how can we keep this art form, which so many people do love, and love without realizing. When you think of, you know, British Airways adverts and adverts, you know, I sat and watched a lot of TV in lockdown, but also just hearing adverts that you go, well, there's the habanero from Carmen, there's the Traviata, there's, you know, on these adverts. What else, you know, you don't know about it. So
Well, Claire, thank you again for joining us. That's all the questions that have been submitted. It's so wonderful to hear the success stories of people who owe some of their backstory to barbershop, and it's wonderful to see that you're doing so successfully. Will we see you at barbershop events in the future, do you think? Still plan on?
I hope so. I definitely hope so. I mean, if I'm available and around, and definitely. I mean, I'm still coaching barbershop online, and which has been really great. And I was part of the collective coaching, part of the music team there. So that's been really, really fantastic.
That was amazing.
To link with people from all over the world as well.
So what's the best way for people to contact you? Do you have a website?
Yes, I have a website, which is clairebarnettjones.com. Easy to remember. But I also have a Facebook page and a Facebook coaching page as well. I'm on Twitter, Instagram. Come have a look at lots of things that I'm doing. I'm quite on there. And follow me and see what is interesting.
So you're very easily findable with a Google search. You'll be able to find you. Well, Claire, thank you ever so much again. It's wonderful for you to put the time and energy into the presentation that you did, and to speak to us. It's great to hear how successful you are. Wonderful to hear how everything is going for you. It's absolutely amazing, and we do hope to see you at barbershop events in the future. But I'm sure we'll all understand if you're off traveling the world. It's but yeah.
Well, I owe so much to barbershop, so I love still being involved. It's great.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Claire. Speak to you again soon, and best of luck from everyone at BABS. Best of luck with everything. It's really wonderful to speak to you.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you, Claire. Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Good luck.